Hey everybody, I'm excited to be in class with you. Can you join me in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 27? We are nearly done in our study of people who crossed paths with Jesus, and most recently we have been with him as he approached the city of Jerusalem for a very specific purpose. We've heard in recent weeks that he had set his face to go to Jerusalem. We watched as he passed through Jericho and talked with Zacchaeus. We watched as he topped the Mount of Olives and made his triumphal entry into Jerusalem. But if you've read this story before, you know Jesus spends several days teaching. Toward the end of that week, he gathers in an upper room with his disciples and establishes a memorial for Christians of all time to remember his sacrifice. He left that upper room. He went to the Garden of Gethsemane and he prayed. That is the place where he was arrested. He was led before different Jewish authorities, and eventually in Matthew chapter 27, we find him being presented before a Roman governor, and it is that governor that we want to spend some time talking about, because Pilate absolutely crossed paths with Jesus, and there are many things that we can learn. So let's do a little bit of reading, and I'll turn it over to you for discussion. Matthew 27, verse 1. When morning came, all the chief priests and the elders of the people took counsel against Jesus to put him to death. That is their goal. But they know they don't have the authority to do that. So they bind him and they lead him away and deliver him over to the Roman governor, Pilate. Now, skip down to verse 11. Jesus stood before Pilate, and the governor asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "You have said so," is Jesus' reply. But when he was accused by the chief priests and the elders, he gave no answer. Then Pilate said to him, "Do you not hear how many things they testify against you?" But he gave him no answer, not even to a single charge, so that Pilate, the governor, is greatly amazed. Now, Matthew gives us a little bit of background. At the feast, the governor was accustomed to release for the crowd any one prisoner whom they wanted, and the Romans had a notorious prisoner called Barabbas. So when they had gathered, Pilate said to them, "Whom do you want me to release for you, Barabbas or Jesus, who is called Christ?" For he knew that it was out of envy that they had delivered Jesus up. Besides, while he was sitting on the judgment seat, Pilate's wife had sent word to him, "Have nothing to do with that righteous man, for I have suffered much because of him today in a dream." There are strange things going on here. Now, the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas, a notorious criminal. And what do they want to happen to Jesus? They want Jesus to be destroyed. But the Roman governor doesn't believe Jesus is guilty of anything. He says to them, "Which of the two do you want me to release for you?" They say, "Barabbas." "Then what shall I do with Jesus, who is called Christ?" is Pilate's question. They all say, "Let him be crucified." "Why?" Pilate asks. "What evil has he done?" But they shout all the more, "Let him be crucified." Now, we'll come back to Matthew 27 in just a moment. John, in his gospel, gives us a little bit more to chew on. In John chapter 18 and verse 33, Pilate enters his headquarters again. He calls Jesus, "Are you the king of the Jews?" is his question that he asks more than once. And this time Jesus answers, "Do you say this of your own accord, or did others say it to you about me?" Pilate answers, "Am I a Jew? Your own nation and the chief priests have delivered you over to me. What have you done?" And it's in this context that Jesus says, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would have been fighting that I might not be delivered over to the Jews, but my kingdom is not from the world." Pilate hears all of this and asks, "So you are a king?" Notice Jesus' answer. "You say that I am a king. For this purpose I was born, and for this purpose I have come into the world, to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth listens to my voice." Pilate doesn't know what to do with all of this. He asks, "What is truth?" And after he had said this, he goes back outside to the Jews. Once again, he says, "I find no fault in him." But Pilate is under pressure. So he allows Jesus to be flogged, to be beaten. Some of his soldiers twist together a crown of thorns and put it on Jesus' head. They put a purple robe over his scarred back, and they mock Jesus. "Hail, King of the Jews." They strike him with their hands. And once all of this has been done, Pilate goes out. He brings Jesus out. "See, I'm bringing him out to you that you may find I see no guilt in him." And they see how Jesus has been treated. But when the chief priests and the Jewish officers see him, they cry out again, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" Pilate says, "Take him yourselves and crucify him, for I find no guilt in him." You get the sense, don't you, that Pilate doesn't want to have anything to do with this. But the Jews keep backing Pilate into a corner. "We have a law, and according to that law, he ought to die because he made himself the Son of God." And this especially concerns Pilate. He's afraid, according to John chapter 19 and verse 8. He goes in his headquarters again and asks Jesus, "Where are you from?" But at this point, Jesus gives him no answer. Pilate says to him, "Won't you speak to me? Do you not know that I have authority to release you and authority to crucify you?" Jesus' words here are important. "You would have no authority over me at all unless it had been given you from above. Therefore, he who delivered me over to you has the greater sin." Pilate is still trying to release Jesus, but the Jews say, "If you release this man, you are not Caesar's friend." Everyone who makes himself a king opposes Caesar. And that is enough for Pilate. Back in Matthew's Gospel, verse 24, when Pilate sees that he's gaining nothing, but rather there's a riot that is about to break out, he takes water, he washes his hands before the crowd, and he emphasizes, "I am innocent of this man's blood. See to it yourselves." All the people answer, "His blood be on us and on our children." Then Pilate releases Barabbas, and having scourged Jesus, delivers him over to be crucified. Listen, some of the most important words that Jesus ever spoke about his kingdom and what it means to be a part of his kingdom were spoken to Pilate. So what can we learn from the time when Pilate crossed paths with Jesus? Let's dig in. Thanks so much for being here, for being in class. Hope I've set you up for good discussion and that you have a great start to this new week.